so we're starting off by talking about youth and the young adult ministry at Dalton State College. And I just thought I would share the scriptural perspective real quick. It's from Ecclesiastes chapter 11, verse 9, a scriptural perspective on young people or on youthfulness. And it says, "Rejoice, young man, during your childhood, and let your heart be pleasant during the days of young manhood." Dangerous words here. "Follow the impulses of your heart and the desires of your eyes, yet know that God will bring you to judgment for all these things." And I just love that passage because it's one of those yes, go for it passages. And I think that this might be something that a lot of moms and dads, I've got 9 kids, don't want anybody telling their kids, follow the impulses of your heart and the desires of your eyes. But yet it's in here in the scriptures, and it's saying something about what youth are in the first place. The energy, there's a certain kind of a wisdom that you have when you Geronimo go for it in life. You can see possibilities and avenues other people can't when they don't put that lens on. And it's just a fact that God utilizes young people in historic cultural moments throughout history in order to impact the culture and the world. And I think a lot of it is he implants in a very scheming way into the impulses of hearts and into the desires of eyes in young people. And I think it's a good thing for us to encourage young people to go for it. The things that they have in mind to do, to go for it and to give them the courage to do it. The verse gives you a good bracket. Now remember, God will give you a judgment on all these things. And that may sound negative, but you know, if you're a gymnast or a ice skate acrobatist, and you want a score from a judge, he's going to give you a score. So judgment is not always bad. You're going to get a score, for how you pursue these things. But isn't that kind of a cool perspective? Is the Geronimo go for it? And there's something about God packing so much potential of future cultural and world impact in the imagination of youth that I think as a church that we can really tap into. So tonight I've got a lot of material right here, but I'm going to run through it very quickly. I'm going to give you just the basics, but I think it's going to be kind of interesting too. I want to share especially the beginnings of this young adult ministry and kind of the concept of it. And then what we want to do is say, well, what does it actually look like? And then we'll hear a couple of young adults who have been a part of it. And then we've got some material up here. We've got the brochure for the Agora project that you can take a look at afterwards. But first of all, the young adult ministry is called the Agora. The word is a Greek word, and it means the marketplace. And in Athens, where the original marketplace, the Agora, that was known actually as the birthplace of democracy. That was where bartering and trading happened at a level that didn't happen in other places. Different kinds of people groups came together and they traded and bartered their wares. It was an exchange not just of goods and services, but an exchange of ideas. And there was this Agora, birthplace of democracy in Athens. If you read Acts chapter 17, Paul on his second missionary journey, he strolls into Athens. And he's kind of alone at that point, and he's running into a different kind of an audience that are Epicureans and Stoicists and philosophers and pagans, lots of different religious ideas. They gathered in the marketplace, in the Agora, and they exchanged their ideas, and those things sort of competed. And he went into that place, and he kind of gave them a presentation of the gospel different than how he presented it in other places. If you read that in Acts 17, it's interesting how he kind of frames everything. But he's using the language of the people of the time, of the things they were interested in, things that are outside of the language we would use if we were religious Jews or religious Christians. He was using their language and their ideas, their poets, and he presented the gospel to them. And he got a focused invitation to speak more clearly the next day, and he came in and gave this whole giant spiel. But we were very interested in the idea of the Agora, this marketplace exchange of ideas. And maybe we could turn, some of this concept into this young adult ministry that we have in mind. What we're trying to do is fulfill 3 particular hungers that we think that the young adults in our generation have. And they're kind of wondering, how do we get this from the church? In many places, it seems lacking. And real quickly, those 3 are, number 1, an intellectual examination of the scriptures, along with all the questions they have and the discrepancies that they think that they have. And in some way, a lot of what they think religion disallows them from thinking too much about, but their brains demand that they think about it. And so providing an intellectual investigation of the scriptures, we think that the young people today are clamoring for that. The second one is they desire a spirited dialogue, a Socratic style back and forth, even debate of ideas about this generation with people different than themselves across variety lines of culture and tradition. They desire a spirited dialogue and debate and exchange of ideas. And third of all, a place where they can be these young, aspiring, future thought leaders of faith, where that can be developed. So sort of a leadership development. So that's what the Agora is trying to do. It's trying to fulfill those 3 main hungers. And like I said, it looks like something week to week, and they'll share a little bit about that. But first, I kind of also want to just tell you guys how this whole thing started. There's a cool story about it, and it involves you, this church. I belong to a small mission called House of Mission. My wife and I have run a Pacific House of Mission ministry in Hawaii and elsewhere for about 20 years. And so it's a community building ministry, but a House of Mission along with St. Mark's Episcopal Church, so you, have put this thing together. And a lot of it has been, Rick's and my relationship. About 10, 13 years ago, Rick and I, he mentioned it already, we ministered together in Hawaii. And we were running discipleship and outreach programs at bases, and we wanted to go to the Navy base and to the Air Force base. So Pearl Harbor and Hickam, where he was a chaplain at the time. And so I kind of came in and was trying to bring some of my staff to start a youth ministry program on the base. And he was there as a big advocate for us coming on to it. And so isn't that cool? It was about 13 years ago or something. Rick and I were doing new ministry launch in Hawaii in ways that had never been done, because it was ecumenical and it was cross-cultural. It was just really neat.
It's an alphabet soup ministry, right?
JBPHH, Joint Base Pearl Harbor Hickam. That's right. That's right. And then, years got away from us, and he got shipped off somewhere, and so did I. And then just over 2 years ago, I think, Rick contacted me. He was like, "I'm watching your social media. Are you in Georgia?" And we discovered that we were both here at the same place, same time. And, we had struck up a trust, I think, because we had the same sort of values. So just over 2 years ago, Rick and I started getting together regularly for coffee. And we would listen to what ideas and values God had placed on each of our hearts. We prayed for each other. We encouraged one another. We talked about the hobbies that, we should go do and we were doing. And we also just kind of started saying, I wonder if God would someday have us again do something together. And we very patiently, sort of prayed for that. About a year ago, I think that really developed, and Rick and I converged these 3 things we had in common, these 3 values. Number 1 is we wanted to do some more reach for college and career age folks. Hopefully that it would be connected to Dalton State College. Secondly, we wanted to rebuild scriptural literacy in today's generation, because we felt that was really failing. And third of all, we wanted it to be intercultural and ecumenical, so crossing those variety lines of tradition and culture. And then about 6 months ago, Rick and I had said, we should probably find some young people in this area and invite them to kind of poll their ideas, and what do you think about these ideas? And that's where Sael and Andrew both came in. We started meeting at Cherokee Pizza about once a week, and we were kind of sniffing each other out to see if we were on the same page, right? And but also brainstorming some ideas. And that was kind of cool that all developed into what we got going on now. So that was about 6 months ago. These guys actually named it the Agora. Rick and I talked about what the Agora historically was, but they were like, that's the name. And we tried to steer it some other way, and they were like, nope, it's the Agora. And I'm glad they did, because I think it's reaped dividends. This last December, House of Mission, our mission partnered officially with Dalton State College as a partnering organization. And then what we did on was it January 9th, I think, we set up an interest booth and then a follow-up interest meeting. And we had a number of students come and they said, forget about talking about this possibility, let's start now. And so we launched on January 9, I think, and we've had about 8 solid regular meetings so far. Our meetings are about going into a passage that especially shows the evolution of the church at the time that I'm trying to figure stuff out. And then we have this whole Socratic style dialogue with those who attend. And it's really profound. I think it's hitting everybody's buttons. Everybody is loving what it is. We also did we assisted the launch of a Catholic ministry, new Catholic ministry on the campus by helping provide some barbecue meal. We participated in the Spirits Night, the homecoming connection of DSC with the local community. Rick had us do Ashes to Go on Ash Wednesday. That was a really cool thing. And we also kind of formed a student-led component for the Agora, and then they went and turned this into an actual registered student organization within the campus. So a lot of things are going on. What we got coming up is a leader retreat that we're going to have, not this weekend, but the next. We have an idea. A lot of the students are like, let's do a podcast. The things that we're talking about, let's broadcast this into the community and be that new, fresher voice into the church. And we've been connecting with some other church pastors who are interested in all of this. Some farther out things we'd like to do is create an actual way for other ministries and leaders to come on and interface with one another over this whole thing. We also want to hire interns and staffing in the future. Like, we have big goals for it, so this is something to really pray for. I'll just finish with this. I think that besides the Holy Spirit, the number one thing that is underpinning the strength of this is the relationship, the forged relationship that God has created between Rick and I. It's been over many years. It's a real trust. It's the sharing of values and the whole relationships undergirding something like this has to be there in order for it to persevere when it doesn't look like things are going to move forward. But it's a really cool thing that's happening right now. Let's hear some of your guys' voices. Who wants to go first? And you just kind of come up here. And I have no idea what they're going to say. They got a couple of things to share about their experience. This is Sael.
Nice to meet you all. Alrighty, I want to start with a verse that's really carried me through just starting the Agora, and even before that. It was Proverbs 27:17, which is, as iron sharpens iron, one person sharpens another. So so I've been going to college for about a year now. I took a gap year in between my first semester and second semester. And my first semester, there wasn't any like ministry at all on campus. And if there was, I didn't find it. But it's when you're fresh out of high school and you go straight into college, you're put into an environment with like a lot of older people and a lot of like people your age. And you're introduced to a lot of things that Christians, you guys all know how college life is. Like there's things that are going to tempt you and things that people are going to try to drag you into. And I was surrounded with a lot of that in my first semester, and I really wanted to find a way out that was to find Christians who I could talk to that were my age, and I couldn't find that at all. And that's one reason why I left college to begin with. And from there, I took a year off. I strengthened my relationship with God, and I prayed to him about like if he wanted me to go back to college or not, or just to see where he would guide me in life. And I did go back to college, and a few months before that, though, I met Andrew. I've known for about a year and a half now. We used to work together at Chick-fil-A. I'm sure you guys have all been there, but we met at Chick-fil-A, and one of the great things about Chick-fil-A is that they allow you to just, because I mean it's a Christian company, so they allow you to speak about the gospel while you're at work. You know, you can be filling up lemonade, making a sandwich, and still talking about God. And we created our own little Bible study, and from there we would meet regularly every Sunday and just grow together, learning more about God together, and just building that biblical literacy that Kevin had mentioned earlier. And we had an idea of like, where does this go? Like I'm going to college soon. Where does this lead us? And Andrew introduced me to Kevin and Rick, at the Cherokee Pizza place. And I don't remember.
Thank God for Cherokee.
Yeah, shout out to Cherokee Pizza.
So he introduced me to that, and he introduced me to them, and like Kevin mentioned, first I was scoping them out. I don't know if we all had the same ideals or like what we wanted out of to be Agora. We didn't even have a name back then, but we just continued to grow trust with one another and to fully understand what each of us wanted out of this mission or what we wanted out of starting a college ministry. And I spent lots of nights praying about it, and because I didn't think I was worthy of it, like to be able to be in a leading position to build a college ministry, And one thing I learned is that God doesn't really call the qualified; He qualifies the called. So, that led to us actually creating the Agora, and it's been really interesting because we've gotten people from many denominations. I don't remember all the denominations. We've gotten people from all those different denominations, and we can read one sentence of scripture together and have 10 different opinions on it and learn 10 different viewpoints, And it was really insightful for me, and I'm learning still a lot about God and how He's not narrow. He's not one path. He can be multiple paths. And I'm really glad that I've been able to be introduced to the Agora, and I'm really hoping it continues to grow, which I know it will, and God willing it will. And that's pretty much my story with the Agora, what started beforehand and what it is now. So.
Hey. I think it's interesting that Kevin shared that verse from Ecclesiastes earlier, because it kind of speaks to some of the ways that not only the Bible, but also some of my own experiences have kind of challenged a lot of my assumptions about young people. That's the thing, is I am a young person, and I still have a tendency to underestimate young people. I did not have a very high opinion of you for a decent chunk of my life. I saw it as kind of an obstacle, something that kind of held you back and kind of got in the way. We all, like you were talking about, we see all this impulsiveness and all this passion and stuff, and just see it as okay, they'll grow up and get past all that. But the Bible, especially the book of Ecclesiastes, actually has quite a lot to say about youth, and it sort of challenged my perspective on that youth is actually a wonderful thing. It's a gift from God if it is approached under the will of God, under the Spirit of God. And I never saw that until I went to college myself. I kind of have a unusual story in that regard. But the thing that I didn't see about young people per se was that they have a almost ravenous desire to grow. And I know it may not look like it because we look out into the world and see a lot of them kind of spinning their tires trying to follow a culture that leads nowhere. But when I went to college over at UTC in Chattanooga, I came into contact with a very successful college ministry. It was very big, it was very vibrant. And for the first time in my life, I really saw what that passage was talking about what kind of a difference it can make when young people have that kind of resource, that kind of community, that kind of fellowship. And it's like a light bulb came on for me. That these kids had something that everyone else didn't. All the people that I talked about were kind of spinning their tires. These people were growing. They actually had kind of found what all the other people were looking for and didn't. So when I moved to Dalton, started working at Chick-fil-A, I kept hearing this note from a lot of young people that this town really didn't have what I saw back at UTC. It didn't really have much for young people. And, I was going around talking to pastors, talked to Sael. We started a little Bible study, but it wasn't anything big. It wasn't until Kevin and Rick approached me that they had this idea to start something at Dalton State that I was like, absolutely. If they don't have something like this, they need it. So we, with the Agora, are kind of leaning into what I was talking about, that desire to grow. Because my experience is a lot of these kids will go to college and they'll actually turn away from the church. I'm sure you've heard the statistics. It's a very common thing. And they do it because they see religion as a dead end. That they are fed a lot of free-packaged ideas and told, take it or leave it. Don't question, don't go asking, don't go thinking too much on your own. And that was something that I had seen, an idea that I had. But we actually did an interest meeting over at Dalton State when we first started this, where we sat down, sort of baited them in with barbecue, get them come in so we could talk a little bit about this idea. And what I was surprised by was how many people lit up when I pointed that out. A lot of people had that same experience where they would go to these Bible studies and they felt like they were almost very intellectual, or anti-intellectual. If you start asking questions, you kind of get brushed off and, like I said, told take it or leave it. And when we proposed this idea of a literal marketplace of ideas, a place that focuses on free discussion with people from different backgrounds, different traditions, different perspectives, a lot of light bulbs came on, over people's heads. A lot of people perked up at the idea of that. And people were excited from day zero, basically, before we even got this properly started. And I'm telling you, it has been an incredible blessing to get to see what's happened that we've actually gotten started. We've gotten started a lot sooner than we had expected, and we're just kind of getting our foot in the door at Dalton State right now. But these kids, we're really tapping into that hunger that they have to grow. They love getting together, and like Sael said, we can read a couple of verses of scripture and talk about it at length, sharing our different traditions, our different perspectives, our different individual thoughts. An amazing thing that these people think they're allowed to have that in a Bible study. And I'm telling you, for how briefly we've been doing this, we've only had 8 proper meetings so far. It is growing a lot faster than I ever could have imagined. And like I said, it's an incredible blessing to see. But so far, that has been my experience. It's just we're tapping into that desire that I think a lot of us really underestimate with young people. That desire to grow, that desire to learn, that desire to learn how to think for themselves. And it's just been an incredible blessing. That's kind of all I have to say for you today.
Didn't they say all just the right things? They had a ravenous desire to grow. Isn't that pretty neat? Just like what you would have for barbecue.
And barbecue,
Right.
Yeah,
So
we appeal to that too.
yeah, and I think we're coming to the end of our time slot.
Can we do maybe just a spontaneous idea? Maybe this would be a good time for questions and answers specifically for the.
Good. Any questions or comments that anybody has?
Is there an age limit to joining the youth group?
No, there's not. One of our primary attendees is Jackie.
Vicky.
Except
Otherwise known as. Yeah.
Except she's actually a leader. But no, we call it college and career age, and it's not just for the Dalton State College students, it's for other students. It's also for those who are not students but career age, and actually it's for beyond that. We had a couple of professors recently say, could we also have faculty involved? And so I think what's important for us is, what are we targeting? Whose hunger are we feeding? And so that's kind of the center point. But the whole point is to bring a new and fresher voice into the wider body of Christ. So it's got to be a wider swath than that.
Yeah,
Yes.
I was going to say, I just think this is wonderful the all-inclusiveness, because, well, I went to Georgia, you know, big colleges, they have the Baptist student, they have, this is separate. And I
Yes.
just think that that's a wonderful idea that y'all are doing.
Thank you.
with
Yeah,
listening
that's an
to-
exciting thing.
An open mind, listening to everybody else.
And to learn from people who are different than you over
Yeah.
the same content
And
that's
not an
real.
argumentative type of thing, but a learning. I just
Right.
think it's great.
And there has to be a little bit of room for it to approach that too. And I think that that's where a lot of things get shut down, is any sign of conflict and everything. And people want to test and they want to investigate. And so I think that's a real learning ground. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
So are you both still currently students at Dalton State?
I am, yes.
He is, yeah. I'm graduated.
But we have other officers, we had to have, create officers, and we have kind of a council, and I would say 99% of the people in the group are students, so.
Yeah, most of them are students.
Yeah. And the really great thing is that Kevin and I come from very ecumenical environments. Kevin grew up as a military,
Military brat.
military brat. And I kind of lived a lifestyle like that. So we've been exposed to many different faith groups. We've been going to chapel on base, and so we're very comfortable with different types of perspectives, different denominations. Kevin is really unique in that as a Christian, he is very open to the Catholic Church, and he was one of the few youth leaders that we were looking at Joint Base Pearl Harbor Hickam that was open to doing a youth group for Catholics as well.
Yeah,
Because
we
a lot of
started,
evangelical
we actually
Christians were like,
started, built contract services for the military to have services come in that would bring Catholics, Protestants, and unaffiliated together in a chapel spiritual environment, which is very strange. It never existed, in the military like that. And so we've got a lot of experience, but it's a fun thing to do. You really see people's faith come alive when you let it run a little bit. Yeah. Anybody else? Any questions? Yes.
When and where do you meet? I mean, you may have said that.
We meet on Tuesdays at 3:30. Isn't that weird? And some of that is we learned the campus. Most people are not in dorms at this campus. It's a commuter campus, right? And so you kind of catch them while they're still there. And it's during some people's class time. We also get together on Thursdays. We're forming sort of a leader den group that thinks ahead and puts a lot of these ideas into place. And we got some other things that we're gonna be adding also.
So where are you meeting on campus?
The Upper Pope Center, which is the student center, and there's the Eddie Miller room. We have that reserved every Tuesday. And we originally started off, we had the ability to reserve that from the beginning, and some of the students were like, no, we want to meet in the cafeteria in the open marketplace like the Agora did. And so for the first number of weeks, we met in all the disturbance of people around us, so that was kind of cool, but it's better to have a better focus. We do have, these are our brochures. We're really proud of the design. Isn't that pretty? But this says a little bit, we put these out before we ever started. So this was kind of like, boy, we sure hope this exists someday. and the next day it existed. But it pretty much says, we're doing pretty much what we forecast that we wanted to do. But you're welcome to take one of these. We're actually, there's a lot of design and preparation for these meetings. They really are studious, and you do have to prepare for a good dialectic and discussion that's spirited. You have to prepare for that. And so we have a whole 2 to 4 page thing that we hand out each week and we go through. And what we're going to do is we're going to, at the end of this semester, we're going to sharpen it up a little bit, and it is going to be a scriptural literacy building curriculum in 11 to 12 segments, and we're gonna submit it to publication. and we think that this could be used in other places too. But basically, the feedback and the exchange that we're getting from the students, that goes into the post editing too. And so that's something that if you're connected with publishers or people who are connected with publishers, in my mind, let's go to Crossway. But that's another exciting thing that we'll add to it all. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah.